Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chuchu Reviews, the show where I take 4 random, unrelated albums, and I stick them in the blender, and then I review them, I rate them, and I rank them. Simplicity achieved. 3 of the records this week were pulled from the comments, so if you have an album you'd like to see featured, why not drop a suggestion, and who knows, you might just get lucky. So let's introduce this week's combatants in alphabetical order. First we have Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons from 1983, which was nominated by Mr. Spooky Man. Then we have Young Chasers by Circa from 2015, which was nominated by Oliver. Next we have Nixon by Lambchop from the year of 2000, which was nominated by Gary Gillam. And lastly we have Only God Was Above Us by Vampire Weekend from 2024, which is my own personal pick for inclusion. So, now the battle lines have been drawn, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. This is Chuchu Reviews. Coming in last this week we have Young Chasers by Circa from 2015, which was the band's debut LP. And Circa are a British indie rock band that managed to make a sizable splash with this debut LP. Their clattering, energetic strokes and Vampire Weekend indebted guitar pop finding an easy sweet spot out in the mainstream radio waves. So congratulations to Circa for finding their 15 minutes and making some bank. I can't begrudge them that, but I can begrudge them this awful record though. I actually dislike this album pretty intensely, which is weird, like it shouldn't annoy me so much, it's just a simple youthful guitar pop record. Sure, I mean it's vacuous and doesn't have an original bone in its body, but it shouldn't set my teeth on edge. But somehow it just does. Like, everything about this LP irks me. The production is terrible, it has a focus on the high end and lacks any bass, which makes the guitars sound really tinny. And this aspect is compounded by the Strokes-esque compression effect on the singer's voice. It all adds up to a really piercing sound quality that I find completely unappealing. The guitar tone also never changes across the entirety of the record. That combined with the very similar vocal melodies makes every song basically sound the same. And the catchiness of these tunes is also off point. A guitar pop album like this really needs to have good hooks, but this feels so half-baked in that department. At times it almost makes it, but I always feel like the tracks somehow stalled at the 70% mark. It's like sticking the tip of your dick into a beautiful girl, only for her to suddenly kick you out of the bed and give you blue balls. It's frustrating. And as such I just find these songs to be completely unmemorable, as well as being highly derivative, unambitious and generally very bland and dull. Oh dear, like I really hate being a negative Nancy. I'm feeling like a miserable git right now, so how about something positive about the record? If you buy this on CD, you could take a pair of scissors to the disc and fashion it into a ninja star? That could be cool. So yeah, I feel it's pertinent to note that everything is subjective. Just because I found this LP about as fun as a corrupt copper beating on my nutsack with a biddy club, doesn't mean that it won't appeal to everybody else. The record was a bona fide hit and went silver in the UK, so lots of people do love it. But sadly for me, Young Chasers by Circa is a kind of inane audio torture. Sorry about that, Oliver. 1.5 stars. Next up we have Only God Was Above Us by Vampire Weekend, which was the band's 5th LP and was released just a few weeks ago in April 2024. And here the band continue to ply their trade in idiosyncratic twee pop, mixing elements of Afrobeat, ska and classical baroque chamber pop together to make a very distinctive and unique mix. Vampire Weekend are one of those bands that really stand out. As soon as you hear a snatch of one of their tunes you immediately know exactly who it is. And that brings me back to Circa I mean, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but how can I not when that band were actively trying to emulate Vampire Weekend? But the difference in atmospheric subtlety, lyrical skill, ambition and quality songwriting is so immediately apparent between the two acts. I guess in a way it's simply really bad timing for Circa I mean, when the real Vampire Weekend is here, there's just not much need for the zero sugar supermarket knockoff version. Anyway, the Vamps are totally on form here. Although admittedly there's not much we haven't heard from the band before, they do refine everything into a state of pristine perfection. This LP is remarkably consistent, with every track delivering the goods and providing exactly what you would want from a Vampire Weekend record. High spots from a rock-solid album includes Classical, which is great with its lovely twee keyboard riff juxtaposed by some somber, war-torn lyrics. How the Cruel with time becomes classical. I know that walls fall, shacks shake, bridges burn and bodies break. It's clear that something's going to change. Capricorn is beautiful and emotive with its cracked balladry and howls of art rock distortion. Connect has a weird, ironically disconnected feeling, but its spacious vibe, beautiful flashes of piano and ear-catching lyrical soundbites make it a really memorable addition. The Surfer, too, feeds off its atmospheric composition, featuring some addictive arpeggiated guitar work and striking horn blasts. While Mary Boone is awesome, with Ezra Koenig giving a fantastic vocal and lyrical performance that totally hooks you in with its resigned urbane sadness. In a quiet moment in the theatre, I could hear the train. Deep inside the city, your memory remains. So yeah, everything else on this also hits the spot, from the explosive rolling drums of Ice Cream Piano, to the lightweight yet violence-stained guitar pop of Prep School Gangsters, to the thumping pacey post-rock of Gen X Cops. It's all really enjoyable stuff. So much so that this could arguably be Vampire Weekend's strongest album to date. 4.5 stars. Next up we have Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons from 1983, which was the band's debut LP. And the Chameleons were a gothic post-punk outfit from Manchester that fit right in alongside their contemporaries such as The Cure and Echo and the Bunnymen. Unlike those iconic acts, however, the Chameleons never broke through into the mainstream, instead disappearing into the underground and partial obscurity. Over time, a cult legacy grew up around the band, with many other artists such as Noel Gallagher and Interpol citing the act as an influence. As such, the Chameleons have attained the reputation as one of the most underrated bands of the 1980s. And it's easy to see why, as this debut album is as slick a post-punk LP as you're ever likely to find, with all the brooding atmospherics, cool shimmering guitar work, miserable lyrics and booming vocals that you could ever ask for. It really does beg the question as to how exactly this band managed to fall through the cracks when they were obviously very, very good at what they were doing. That said, before I start sucking on the dick of unanimous praise, I have to say that this record is not entirely perfect. It has one significant glaring fault, which is overlength. At 57 minutes long, Script of the Bridge really could have done with a couple of script rewrites to trim down the runtime a bit. There's a stretch of late album tracks that include As High As You Can Go, A Person Isn't Safe Anywhere These Days and Paper Tigers that could have really stood for the chop. They're not particularly bad tracks or anything, but they do feel a touch inessential when compared to everything else. And speaking of everything else, the rest of the record simply hits upon a very comfortable form of gothic post-punk perfection. Highlights include Here Today, which is fantastic, its out-of-body death experience lyrics and icy guitar lines combining perfectly. Monkeyland explodes out of its dour dirgy torpor into a giant catchy chorus that immediately makes the track pop. Second Skin has some really kick-ass guitar work that grinds away in the background, adding layers of anticipation to the track. And when the climax comes with its glacial synths and jangly guitars, it's like a type of post-punk Nirvana banging on your door. Up the Down Escalator is a blast of thoroughbred catchiness that sounds like it probably made the modern band White Lies pee their Y-fronts with excitement. While Less Than Human has an upfront vocal that works as an immediate hook, its repeated miserable phrases almost demanding to be sung along with. I must have died 1,000 times. So yeah, this debut LP by the Chameleons doesn't disappoint. It is indeed vastly underrated and totally deserves its sterling underground reputation. 4.5 stars. So, the Chuchu Review's gold medal this week is going to go to Nixon by Lambchop, which was the band's 5th LP from the year of 2000. Well, I say band, but Lambchop are actually a loose collection of musicians supporting the primary songwriter and lyricist Kurt Wagner. And lyrics are very much the key here. The songs on Nixon are basically sprawling poems set to music. They don't have typical pop structures, or identifiable choruses. Hell, they don't really have much in the way of instrumental breaks either. But what they do have is a lot of well-balanced atmosphere building. The musical compositions always fit perfectly with the lyrics, helping to heighten the emotional gravity of Wagner's words. And those words are pretty good. Kurt Wagner walks an interesting lyrical tightrope between being poetically obtuse and emotionally frank. It's a deep and rewarding set of lyrics that pull you in with their subtlety and keep you engaged throughout. Highlights from an album that doesn't waver in quality once you've acclimatized to its specific stylings includes Grampus, which has some beautiful autumnal guitar work supporting Wagner's lyrics about how to be a grumpy douche, which is subtly funny, especially as he advises you, it'll take some practice. Up With People is the most overtly catchy song on the record, its wispy guitars, upbeat trumpets and gospel backing singers adding an appreciated pop sheen. Nashville Parents has some good couplets to go wading through, such as try to spit onto the sidewalk, but instead you wipe it off your chest. I don't want to freak, but the tongue erodes every time we speak. The distance from Her to There sees Wagner's shaky falsetto adding some more emotion to the track's swooningly beautiful country-tinged balladry. The Book I Haven't Read continues that swooning mood with its yearningly romantic slow groove that features some lovely classical strings, while the likes of The Petrified Forest and The Butcher Boy bring in the dark atmospherics and some tips of the hat towards Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So yeah, whilst this album lacks any sense of pop immediacy, it ends up impressing with its depth, intelligence and relaxing laid-back emotive atmosphere. This is very good stuff indeed from Lambchop here, 4.5 stars. And that's another episode of Chuchu Reviews in the bag. Of course, I know that you'd rank these records differently, so why not sound off in the comments and tell me which one would have won for you. And maybe drop a nomination while you're there. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking. It's a sweet plantain.